So today we are going to see what is your gene libraries. So gene library is nothing but it's a collection of different DNA sequences, okay, which we are getting from organisms. So we can have like gene library of human beings, gene library of say Drosophila, gene library of C. elegans. So that's how for all the DNA fragments or DNA sequences which you get from a particular organism. Okay, so each of these fragments which you are getting is being cloned into a vector, and then they are purified, stored, and then analyzed. So this collection of all these vectors, okay, so like you can have say a DNA sequence is there. My DNA sequence I have taken, and I am fragmenting it into 100 pieces. So these 100 pieces are going to be cloned into 100 different vectors. Yes, and these vectors would be taken up by your host, some host cell, say for example E. coli. So these collection, okay, so you have to identify which are your host cells, which are your E. coli cells, which are carrying this part of the gene. Okay, so they have an insert. So the collection of all these E. coli cells, which will have all these 100 fragments, that would be called as your gene library. Okay, so these gene libraries are being used for two purposes. One is cloning for individual genes. So, for example, genes associated with certain genetic disorder and all that can be utilized, that can be together. Second one is also for construction of physical maps of genomes. Okay, so like you have to find out that where in your, say you have your chromosome or wahan pe you want to find out where your gene is located. So creating a particular map for that also gene libraries are useful. So they are essential two types of gene libraries that can be made depending upon that what is the source of DNA you are using. Either you can directly take your genomic DNA, so that would be called as your genomic library, or else if you are taking the DNA as your cDNA, not the direct genomic DNA, but you are taking cDNA. What is cDNA? Like you isolate the mRNAs, and then the mRNA is again transcribed back or reverse transcribed into your cDNA. That is called as your cDNA library. So, what is the difference between a genomic library and a cDNA library? Your genomic library will contain, so in case of eukaryotes, you know that it will contain both your introns and your exons, whereas your cDNA library is going to contain only your exons because mRNA will undergo splicing, so the introns would be removed. So what is going to remain is only your exons. So exons together, they are bound together. That's how your entire mRNA will be formed, and that gets reverse transcribed to your cDNA. So these are the basic steps of your genomic library preparation. Let us go through it. First is extraction of your genomic DNA of the organism of interest. So whichever, for whatever organism you want to make the genomic library, you have to isolate the genomic DNA. Then this extracted DNA is cut into small pieces using your restriction endonucleases. So then your appropriate vector has to be used. So most of the times it is your plasmid. So the plasmid would be again cut at the same using the same restriction enzyme. So if I have used EcoR1 for cutting my DNA or for restricting my DNA, the same EcoR1 I will be using for my plasmid also. So plasmids have this multiple cloning sites. So multiple cloning sites will allow it to cut with different types of restriction enzymes. So what will happen because of this? Your staggered ends are going to be created, and so the DNA will get inserted into the vector. So the gene size DNA and our cut plasmids are combined into one test tube, and some of this enzyme cut DNA will combine with the combined with whatever your the staggered cuts of your vectors are there, and that's how the recombinant DNA is going to be formed. So then the recombinant plasmids which are there, they would be screened using your whatever your screening mechanism is there, depending upon the vector. So they would be screened and then transferred into your bacteria. Okay. So using different methods, either you can use electroporation or transformation. Any kind of method can be used for so that your these host cells are taking up your this recombinant vectors which are there. Now the bacteria are grown on culture dish and allowed to grow into colonies, and all the colonies on this plates are grown, or so whatever this entire set of your recombinant cell, whatever you are getting, so they would that entire collection is going to be called as your gene library. Okay, so yes, this gene library needs to be screened in order to discover which bacterial colony is carrying your gene of interest whenever you want to go for any other work. Okay, so for example, I want to say study a particular gene, okay, from Drosophila. So what I will do is I will select this gene library of Drosophila, and then from these, so there would be definitely many bacterial cells, right, which are going to carry different genes. Now I will be screening, I will be trying to find out which out of that bacteria is carrying my gene of interest. Okay, so there are various different methods used for it. You can go for nucleic acid hybridization, plaque hybridization, or your functional screening method, depending upon what is your purpose. Okay, so that's how you can screen them. uh, so screening can be based on detecting the DNA sequence of the clone gene, or it can be detecting the protein that the gene encodes, or also it could be linked use of linked DNA markers. So some of the times, the if your gene of interest is being linked with any other fusion proteins or something, using that also you can identify. So once you have identified that which is the bacteria which is carrying your gene of interest, okay, so then you can make various or more copies of that particular bacteria, okay, so that you can get recombinant plasmids also and your DNAs. Then isolate this. You can just extract out the plasmid containing your gene of interest, and then you can extract out the gene and use it for your further genetic engineering or your genetic modification or transformation, any kind of experiments that are there. Okay, so this is what I have just explained it to you. You have your human DNA. For example, if I am making the genomic library for human DNA, so I'll have the human DNA. So that DNA is going to be digested. So it's a partial digestion. That means you're not all the sites are not going to be exploited in this case. So you're using the SAW3A, just an example. So you have different 20 kb fragments are being produced, okay, with sticky ends. Similarly, you have your bacteriophage lambda DNA. So you know that bacteriophage vectors are there, where you will be discarding the ones that can be replaced, or that can be not necessary for the propagation of the viruses, or that those portions can be removed. So you will have some areas remaining. So your whatever your DNA is there, that would be inserted. So here I am showing you an example of how your genomic library can be produced in phages. Okay, before this, what I have told you is in your host cells, like your prokaryote cells, how you can do it, that I had explained you. Now I am explaining you how it can be done in a phage. The method is similar. Okay, so that's how you are going to then mix it your human DNA fragments which you are getting after the restricting with the particular enzyme, and your lambda arms which are there, and then seal it with your DNA ligase. Then they would be packed into your virions. Okay, so once it has been packed, so now if you want to find out, so this is going to be a collection of your virions or your lambda phages. Okay, that is going to be your genomic library. Previous example, I had told you it would be collection of your E. coli cells. So if selection or screening you want to do for this, you have to go for your phage uh, hybridization. In case of the first one, you have to go for your colony hybridization. So now I will be explaining you about your cDNA library. So the concept is again the same. As I've already told you, cDNA is nothing but your complementary DNA, which is prepared by reverse transcribing your cellular DNA. So they are very much useful, because they are going to lack this intron. So if you want to directly use any of the genes into for your expression, okay, so then you can go for your cDNA, because most of the prokaryotes, they don't have any kind of your splicing mechanism. So if your exons and introns are both present in the gene, they are not able to identify it, and neither they will be able to cut the exons. So in that case, we will prefer always to go for your cDNA for the cloning experiments. Okay. So they will these cloned eukaryotic cDNA are useful because they lack introns and other non-coding regions. So introns are rare in bacteria but occur in most genes of higher eukaryotes and are transcribed by RNA polymerase. Yes, as primary transcribe that goes through a series of changes, okay, series of events in the nucleus before appearing in the cytoplasm as your mature mRNA. Okay, so this is going to be called, this process is called as your splicing. So introns interrupt this entire, how your gene is there, the relationship between the gene and your encoded polypeptide. So they have this 5 prime to 3 prime untranslated regions. Okay, that is to be removed from this splicing process. So the size of the cDNA clone is significantly smaller as compared to your genomic DNA because unwanted parts are going to be removed. So definitely they will be smaller. So for example, you can see that in case of your human dystrophin gene contains 79 introns. So it is like the gene is nearly 2.5 MB in length. Okay, but when you are taking a cDNA, which is comprising of only the exons, so all the 79 introns are going to be removed. So almost 99% of the sequence is removed. And what you are going to get is only your 11 KB. So definitely the entire process also, uh, uh, the it slows down, or it is not slow down, but scaling down is what you can say. It scales down, so you will require less number of, or you will have less number of clones also. So they can be expressed. Yes, this is very important. If it is cDNA clones, they can be expressed in your prokaryotes also. Okay, so you can locate the intron exon boundaries in the eukaryotes to find out, which part is required and which not. So this is how your entire process will take place. Let me explain it to you. So first, in this case, instead of extracting or isolating your DNA from the cells, you are going to isolate the mRNA. So mRNAs are going to have this poly A tail. It's a feature of your mRNA, right? So that feature can be used for hybridization with the oligo DT primers. So you don't require to know what is the sequence of the mRNA. So using this poly DT primer, which will go and bind to every mRNA which is there in the extract. Okay, so using that, what will happen is you will be getting a strand, a complementary strand to that particular mRNA which is there. So the green one is there. Okay, so then once that is there, you will be removing this red colored mRNA. Okay, with using alkali treatment, and only this DNA is removed, which is allowed to be kept. Okay, so this DNA is cDNA, and then a poly G tail. You can see over here a poly G tail is added. So now using this, because we require a double-stranded cDNA, right? So now why this poly G was added? Because so that now we can use your poly C primer, and then we can form the complementary strand to your this particular first strand that was there. So that is how you can see that your double-stranded cDNA is there, and these cDNA can be methylated, okay, so that they can be protected from getting degraded. Okay, so then they can be added to your eco-R1 linkers. Is that case you can add your linkers. So why this linker is utilized? Because eco-R1, you have specific type of your. We don't want this mRNA or your gene to get cleaved in between. Okay, so here we will be using only eco-R1 so that they will go and restrict only to this linkers, and then you can ligate it to either your lambda arms, as we have seen earlier, or else you can also ligate it to your vector. Okay, that is like your plasmid. Any of this can be utilized. Okay, so either a plasmid or a bacteriophage lambda, they can be bound to. Okay, that is how your mm, cDNA libraries are being produced. Okay, so you can see over here your genes in expression, like if it is your mRNA for your cDNA, the library is going to be smaller in size, right? Because you will have lesser type of, and here you don't have to give treatment with restriction digestion, because complete gene is going to be present. It is seen to it that the complete gene is present, or it is transferred into your, converted into your cDNA, and then inserted into your plasmid or your lambda part, whatever your vector is there. In case of your chromosomal DNA, yes, you can again use plasmid or phages, and a larger library is going to be used. Okay, so what are the uses of genomic library? Researchers can explore the genome of an organism to learn more about genomic structure and function. They can map the specific location of the genes, as I've already told you. They can develop specific tests to have, to locate genetic variations, like you can locate your SNPs and all, which are responsible for many diseases. So locating that, it could be helped. Then useful for your recombinant DNA technology, like whatever your modifications and mm, produced colonies are there, so they can be utilized for further experiments. Whatever manipulation you want to do, that can be done. And most of the time, this gene library construction is the first step of any DNA sequencing projects. Like any, you have say human genome project अगर है तो उसमें first what was done is your genome library was made. Then genomic library has been identification of novel pharmaceutically important genes also, okay, which are responsible for one or the other methods. Okay, so that is all about your genomic library, which includes both your cDNA library and your gene